So before understanding the abstract data types, we have to understand what are actually the data types are. As in algebra, we use many variables such as x, y, z, p, q, etc. to store different values in them. The values may be any integer types or the decimal types, etc., etc. And similarly, in programming language, in programming also we use the different types of variables to store different types of data, and these variables and every variables data is stored every data that are stored in variables are of different types. Some may be of integer types and other may be of string types, and similarly they may be of decimal types, and etc., etc. So we have to mention that what the variable are of what types, so that this variable can contain the similar types of data. For example, if we declare that x to contain only the integer types of data, then x will only contain the integer types of data like 1, 2, 3, 4. Similarly, if y is declared to contain the string type of data, then it will contain only the string type of data, that is person name, anything. So these are the data types, that is the data types. If we declare any variable as what it will contain, then that is known as a data type. For example, there are various types. There are for example, int x, float y, string z. For example, here I have declared the x variable with the int data type, y variable with float data type, and string z with the string data type. So x will only contain the integer value, y will only contain the floating point value, and z will only contain the string value. Now these there are three types of data types. One data type is the primitive data types, the other is the user defined data types, and the third one are the abstract data types. So there are three types of data types. There are primitive data type, user defined data type, and the abstract data types. So the data types which we have discussed earlier were the primitive data types. That are the most primitive data. They are the most primitive data types that are defined by the system itself, and that are universal for all types of programming languages. And now the thing we have to care about are the primitive data types are always comes with operations defined, such as the various operations that can be performed on the primitive data types are addition, subtraction, divide, multiplication, more, etc., etc. So in the similar way, the user defined data types are the data types which are defined by the user or the programmer. The examples of the user defined data types are the classes in the Java, and structures in the C and C++. In just like the operations in the primitive data types, in user defined data types we define various methods. That methods are defined for performing the various operations in the user defined data types. For example, if we create a class registration, and this class will contain in this class we will make another method that will be student registration. So in this user defined data types we have declared a class and operation, that is the method student registration, that will perform the registration activity. It means the student registration is the operation that we have defined to perform the registration activities. Now let us talk about the abstract data types. So as we know, there are the examples of abstract data types are linked list, array, linked list, array list, stacks, queues, etc. These are the defined data structures which store data in a particular pattern or particular way. Now let's study what the definition says. To simplify the process of solving problems, we combine the data structures with the operations, and we call the abstract data types. Now these data structures just simplify the way of storing the data. Now the various operations, there are the various operations declared for each data structure. For example, for stack, we can pop an element, we can pick an element. For queues, the various defined operations are the first in first out, etc. And for linked list, we can delete an item from the linked list or add an item in the linked list. These are the operations which can be performed on these data structures, and these operations are already defined. So this type of this type of data types are called the abstract data types. Abstract means these are already defined, and we just have to use that defined operations on these data structures. So the ADT, abstract data types, consist of the two parts: declaration of data and the declaration of operations. Declarations of data is the structuring of the data, how we are going to store the data, and the manipulate how we are going to structure the data. And the declarations of operations, these are the operations which the programmer, which are initially declared to be used on these data structures.